NASCAR VP of Competition Scott Miller doubles down this morning, defending NASCAR's decision not to penalize Noah Gragson, Daniel Hemric, or anyone. We'll look back at Saturday night's incident and discuss whether NASCAR got this call right or wrong. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to a Monday edition of Out of the Groove. Minus the forgettable Truck Series race, this weekend's races at Atlanta featured plenty of theatrics, plenty of drama, plenty of controversy. Was Joey Logano wrong to race Kyle Larson so hard late in the Cup Series race? Was Noah Gragson wrong for backing up into Hemric's pit box? Was Hemric wrong for confronting Gragson? Was the pit crew wrong for getting involved and not letting just the boys have at it? We've got a lot to talk about today. We're focusing on that Gragson-Hemric drama because, as I mentioned at the top, NASCAR's Scott Miller doubled down on his defense of not issuing any penalties for Saturday night's affair. We'll talk about whether or not that was the right decision, but first, this episode is sponsored by our old friends at Theragesic, one of the first official sponsors Out of the Groove ever had. Theragesic is back. Stop muscle pain before it stops you. That is their slogan. Their pain relief cream is great for muscle pain, joint pain, aches. Theragesic is widely available at Walmart's, Targets, Amazon. You can check out their website as well. That link is down in the description. Theragesic, stop muscle pain before it stops you. Great longtime supporters of Out of the Groove, so thank you again to Theragesic for supporting this show. Now, full disclosure, I did not watch the Xfinity race Saturday night live. I was actually taking my dad to his first ever sprint car event. It was only my second ever dirt race, but we went and saw the World of Outlaws race at Cotton Bowl Speedway. Great time. Got to see Brad Sweet win, I believe his 60th career win. I didn't know there was a milestone at play, but when he won, everyone was all excited. So congrats to Brad Sweet. I'm learning more and more about sprint cars, but I know my dad was very impressed by the show they were able to put on. So as a result, I did not see the Xfinity race live. However, in between the different heat races, I did have good internet, so I was keeping up with all the notable storylines. I know Truex dominated. Congrats to Justin Allgaier getting the win, but I also saw moments after it happened, the replays and the controversy around the Noah Gragson, Daniel Hemric spat. Controversy, fight, physical altercation. Woo! I've gone back and seen all the replays that I could find available, and we're going to share some of them with you because before I talk about whether or not NASCAR got this call right or wrong, we need to catch up and review each set of events as they happen and analyze them from every angle. So first, before we get into trying to judge this incident, let's discuss what actually happened. So Noah Gragson's day got off to a rough start. He got damaged in an early accident when Brett Moffitt, Brandon Jones got together. Gragson, just an innocent bystander, got squoze up into the wall, damaged his left front especially, but credit to the team. They repaired that damage and kept the 9 car fairly competitive all day long. So fast forward later in the race to this pit stop cycle. Gragson is still in contention. Hemric, of course, is in contention. As the two of them approach their pit boxes, the 99 car, for whatever reason, has missed his box and has driven into the 18 Hemric's pit box. I mention that because the original Fox replays weren't that good and they didn't show the full story. It was unclear why Hemric missed his box. Some people just assumed Hemric blew through his box and he made the mistake. No, it was the fault of the 99 car that forced both Hemric and Gragson to effectively miss their boxes. It screwed up everyone's entry. It was a sequence of events. So blame the 99 car for them missing their box. Anyway, once both drivers got there, Hemric was able to back into his pit box, which the Fox broadcast did mention. The Atlanta pit boxes are a little bit smaller than most other racetracks. As Noah Gragson pulled around the 18 car, I just thought this was funny. You can clearly see on one of the replays him flip off Daniel Hemric as he goes by, so he was upset with Hemric. Perhaps he didn't see that the 99 car missed his box as well. Maybe he thought Hemric could have avoided the 99 car differently and avoided screwing up Gragson's stop. Whatever the case may be, Gragson was unhappy and clear as day does give Hemric the finger. After Hemric backs into his pit box, Noah Gragson tries to back into his box, or tries to back up at least to then straighten himself out to get in his box, and that's when he makes contact with Daniel Hemric on pit road, forcing Daniel Hemric's pit crew guys to sort of scatter, to jump back, to get their hands out of the cookie jar, if you will, because these are heavy machines making contact on pit road with fairly defenseless crew members standing around. Always sketchy, typically frowned upon. We saw in the Cup Series race on Sunday how collectively the entire NASCAR fan base sort of breathed a sigh of relief after Anthony Alfredo spun out and almost took out Eric Almirola's crew members. I mean, that was a couple feet, maybe a few inches away from being really, really ugly. Thank goodness nobody was hurt in that incident, and thank goodness nobody was hurt in this Gragson-Hemric slight contact. Now, looking at this Gragson-Hemric replay one more time, I do want to mention this because this may come into play when we talk later. You'll notice Noah Gragson's rear tires never appear to cross that line into Hemric's box. Like, it looks like when he backs up, his tires are on the line. It's borderline for sure, but to say that Noah Gragson backed completely up with reckless abandon into Hemric's box does not appear to be clear. He is entitled to his space. That is his pit box. Hemric was pretty deep in his own box, not giving Gragson a lot of room. So Gragson, it's worth mentioning, his rear tires never seem to cross that line into Hemric's box. Obviously, the bumper and everything that hangs over did and made contact, but the tires themselves, which is what NASCAR cares most about when issuing penalties, they care about whether your tires are in your box. Just worth mentioning, the tires did not appear to cross past that line into Hemric's box. Just want to make that clear. I'm not defending anyone or accusing anyone just yet. We'll get to that in a few moments. Anyway, clearly Daniel Hemric was upset with that contact. You know, the race played out and Noah Gragson actually ends up finishing 4th. Very impressive given their early issues. Hemric came home 9th. Justin Allgaier, as I mentioned, got the win, Noah Gragson's teammate. But as the cars rested on pit road and TV and radio interviews began playing out, Daniel Hemric went up to Noah Gragson to confront him for that pit road incident and led to a scuffle. Oh, baby. And not just a scuffle, a Gragson swing and Hemric throws a punch as well. Gragson comes flying in again and then they get separated, of course, pretty quickly. They don't allow things to play out very long here in NASCAR. Here's a close-up angle. Look at Daniel Hemric here. Whoop! Oh my, did he connect on that punch? He might have, maybe a glancing blow. It didn't seem to faze Noah too much if he did, but then that dodge, look at that slow motion again. Oh my, very, very impressive from Daniel Hemric right there. Anyway, so they fought on pit road, and also like in this clip right here, as they got split up, Hemric starts walking away. Look at Harrison Burton come in and give him the fist bump. You'll remember Harrison Burton and Noah Gragson got into a fist fight last year, so... It's so petty, so subtle, but I love it. I love how he just approached him with like his hands behind his back, just loody-doody-doo, just minding my own business, perfectly innocent. Hey, fist bump. That was good. Good stuff, Daniel. Good stuff. Anyway, Noah Gragson was summoned to the NASCAR hauler, so he did speak to NASCAR officials after Saturday's race. And then, as is the natural order of things, the controversy spilled over to Twitter. First, Noah Gragson defended himself. This was what he said. The 18 was in our pit box when I was turning into our pit stall. He backed up into his. I was out of position in the box and had to back up to get into my box. Unintentional backing into him. If they'd show the full replay, you'd see I didn't just back into him for no reason. So Noah Gragson saying clearly there that he did not intentionally try to back up and hit Daniel Hemric. He didn't have a lot of space. He needed to back up to make sure all 4 tires were in the box so he doesn't get a penalty. And he says the contact was accidental, just a misjudgment. Tight pit boxes. Hemric was deep in his box. Gragson was in an odd position. It could happen. So Gragson says it's unintentional. Daniel Hemric responds later with this tweet. The middle finger you gave me out the window was a pretty clear indication to me that you knew exactly what your intent was. Thanks for posting the facts, Noah Gragson. So Hemric is accusing Gragson of losing his head and backing into his car intentionally, trying to intimidate him or voice his frustration perhaps. And in fairness to Hemric, Gragson did flip off Hemric as he drove by. Now it's unclear. There was one replay where maybe looked like Gragson had the finger out as he was putting the car in reverse and backing up. That's been unproven. There's not been a good angle of that. It's like maybe a shadow was in place. Like it's hard to tell, so I'm not going to judge him for that. But Hemric's not wrong. At least in one of the replays, we do see Gragson flip off Hemric as he first drives by the 18 car. Not when he backs up, when he first drives by. So yes, you could argue that clearly that implies Gragson was angry, and angry Gragson sometimes leads to bad incidents on the track. Anyway, so Hemric thinks it was on purpose, thinks he purposely endangered the 18 crew members and tried to damage the 18 car. Gragson says it was unintentional, he just didn't have space, so that left, of course, NASCAR fans to pick a side. For one, you had Denny Hamlin responding to a replay of the pit road incident saying, this is not okay. He seems to believe Noah Gragson crossed the line. I mean, he didn't literally actually cross the line. His tires, again, stayed on his side, but he crossed the metaphorical line, I guess you could say. So let's fast forward now to the aftermath. After this incident, NASCAR officially declared that no penalties would be issued to Gragson for the pit road incident or the fight, or to Hemric for the fight, or to any of the crew members also involved in the fight, because if you go back and look at that fight, I don't like when big crew guys step in and get involved here. I don't like that this one crew guy basically put Hemric in a headlock and then Gragson comes flying in trying to swing still. Like I don't like that. Don't get involved. It wasn't as egregious as, I think it was a 22 crew guy a couple years back who yanked Hamlin to the ground, blindsided him. He got penalized for that and justly, definitely should have been. I don't think this was as bad, but I certainly don't like when 6'5" pit crew guys get in between these spats. Just keep out of it. Just if you're gonna do anything, get in between them and push them away. Don't bear hug them. I don't like that. Here was the statement Sunday morning from NASCAR's Scott Miller. We reviewed the incident which occurred between the 9 and 18 cars on pit road during Saturday night's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway and met with Noah Gragson after the event. A chain reaction of events led to the 18 and 9 both overshooting their pit stalls. The 9 ended up both long and out of his pit box to the outside and needed to back up as far as possible to have any chance at fully pulling into his box. After reviewing the video, it is our judgment that the contact was not deliberate. So NASCAR says no penalties because they could not prove that Gragson intentionally tried to make contact with the 18 car. That sides with what Gragson says his perspective of the incident was. Gragson says it was unintentional. NASCAR seems to be siding with him in this case, so no penalties. And then today, the reason I'm bringing this up again on Out of the Groove is because Scott Miller doubled down on this, speaking to SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Again, Scott Miller, NASCAR VP of Competition. It's his job to police these kinds of things, or not police them, depending on where he lands. And here's what he said this morning.
You know, Noah found himself outside the pit box, and the only way he could really get back in was back up as far as he could. And I think he misjudged it there and hit the 18, and, you know, all kinds of mayhem ensued from there. But he didn't deliberately back into him. So we have had conversations with them, and we'll probably have some more this week now that everybody's calmed down, just to make sure that we're not going to see a replay of anything like what we saw.
So a couple things to react to there. First, you know, he's entitled to his own opinion, and we all don't know what exactly went on underneath the helmet in Noah Gragson's case. We don't know if it was on purpose. We don't know if it was intentional. Of course, Noah Gragson has a history, and we can maybe refer to that history to infer what Gragson might have been thinking, but that's not entirely fair to Noah Gragson himself. So NASCAR's judgment is that he did not back into Hemric and make contact with him intentionally. But it does sound like, based on those comments, that NASCAR had a pretty honest discussion with Noah Gragson at the track this weekend, and it sounds like NASCAR is going to have a pretty honest discussion with both Gragson and Hemric later this week to ensure that incidents like this do not spill over into the coming races and coming weeks. And I think to me, that's the point of this whole thing. That should be the point. I don't believe, and I didn't even believe watching Saturday night or Sunday morning, that NASCAR should have slapped, you know, Gragson with a suspension or a hefty fine or anything like that, because again, it was unclear whether his actions were deliberate, and given the squirrely sequence of events, you could make an argument on both sides. It's hard to find any hard proof, hard evidence that Gragson did that on purpose. The closest thing you have, and the one reason I'm a little surprised NASCAR didn't officially put him on probation at least, is the fact that he did flip Hemric off moments before backing into him. Not necessarily as he backed into him, but a few seconds before he backed into him. The finger would imply that he was feeling kind of hostile towards Hemric. And that doesn't immediately mean that the contact was on purpose, but that's the closest thing to any sort of evidence we may have. It's not like Gragson was on the radio as he was backing up saying, "Hey, I'm backing up into him. I'm going to hit his car. Let's do this." Well, it's never going to be that obvious, but I didn't want NASCAR to suspend Noah Gragson. I didn't think NASCAR should fine Noah Gragson, but I did want them to sit down and have an honest conversation with him, which is why I thought maybe putting him on probation, you know, officially putting him on notice that, hey, you need to be careful out there. We're watching you. I thought they could do that, but at the very least, it does sound like NASCAR had a very serious conversation with Noah Gragson, because Noah Gragson, it's becoming too much of a trend. We like drivers with personality. We like it when things are controversial and dramatic, and Noah Gragson has given us plenty of that kind of content over the last couple of years. But as I said a couple weeks back, after the Homestead incident when he got wrecked by a lap car, you know, horrible way to lose a race, and then went on to say that the driver of that car was terrible, say that that team was terrible, say that those teams have no business being on the racetrack, all that great stuff. I thought that was too far. But at the very least, all that stuff stayed off the racetrack. None of that stuff was putting anyone in any physical danger. But I said it a couple weeks ago, if these Noah Gragson antics start to put people in danger, then we have a problem. And I thought what happened at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend with him backing up into the 18 car the way he did, to me that showed carelessness, and to me that did put some people's safety in danger. And so while it wasn't egregious, it wasn't as egregious as some of the things like we've seen Hemric do in years past, where he likes to speed into guys' pit box and curse out the pit crew and then burn out of it. Hemric loves to pull in the guy's pit box, as he used to do it all the time. Or things we've seen Kurt Busch do, or even Kyle Edwards, Stuart Keselowski, running into people on pit road after the race. This wasn't as egregious as any of those things, quite frankly, but it was borderline. It was certainly borderline. That's why people are debating it. That's why it's controversial. That's why when NASCAR said no penalty, many fans were surprised. So Gragson Gragson very nearly crossed that metaphorical line again. I think it's important that NASCAR step in. He's a young driver who has a history of living in the moment and making passionate decisions that maybe weren't necessarily the right decisions in the long run. So I'm glad NASCAR seems to have stepped in and hopefully made this clear. I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs to step in and talk to Noah Gragson. Here's the thing about Noah Gragson. I think he's talented. I'll say it again. I think he's talented, but in now 2+ years of Xfinity Series racing for one of the best teams, he only has 2 wins. He's not a surefire Cup Series superstar. He's not, guaranteed to land in the Cup Series one day. He's not a guaranteed star. He's not even the best driver in the Xfinity Series. He's not even probably the top 3 or 4 drivers in the Xfinity Series today. I'm just saying, he got into a car that won the championship in 2017 with William Byron, won the championship in 2018 with Tyler Reddick. Gragson gets in the car in 2019, winless. Last year he got 2 wins, this year he's so far winless. 2 wins in over 2 seasons in a JRM car is nothing to be that impressed by. The fact that he's been involved in more fights than he has found victory lane in the Xfinity Series at this point, that's a problem. That is not a good ratio to have. I get that he's fun to watch, I get that he's exciting, but you know why why so many fans gravitated to Tony Stewart? One, because he spoke his mind, was not afraid to get in each people's faces to tell them how he felt, not afraid to start throwing down with people. It's the fact that he had the success on track to back up his opinion. When he got in a fight with somebody, often he was at least somewhat justified. But even if he wasn't justified, he would succeed in shutting many of the haters up by winning the next week or winning in the middle of the week in a dirt race somewhere. Like, Tony Stewart won in everything. He's one of the best drivers I've seen in my lifetime. Noah Gragson's not in the same league as Tony Stewart or Dale Earnhardt or Kyle Busch or other drivers that have ruffled feathers over the years. Noah Gragson is nowhere close. So while I love him speaking his mind and everything, as I said a couple weeks ago, it's a risky play when you are a young driver who's still unproven, still trying to convince team owners and sponsors that you have what it takes to go the distance. It's risky to keep landing yourself at the center of tenuous controversies like this, where you have superstars like Denny Hamlin calling you out for being wrong. You have Mike Joy calling you out last week. People are talking about Noah Gragson an awful lot, but you'll notice we are almost never talking about how great of a race car driver Noah Gragson is. We're really just talking about silly on and off the track controversies. I don't think that's what a young driver should be striving to brand himself as. The driver who's always involved in silly controversies, always got somebody throwing punches at him. That's not what any driver should be striving for, so I hope Noah Gragson's able to tone it back a little bit. Tone it back. And just go a few months, heck, even just a few weeks, without finding yourself in the center of some war of words or actual fist fight on pit road. Just go a few weeks. Let it breathe a little bit. It's becoming too predictable, let it breathe. That's all I've got to say about Noah Gragson. I still like him. I still want him to succeed. And I'm really saying this as someone who wants him to succeed, because I want more drivers who are unafraid to speak their minds. I want those drivers to stay in the sport and be successful, because I'd love to see someone kind of replace that gap Tony Stewart has left behind. Noah Gragson, if he starts winning a whole bunch, he could very easily fill that gap. And I think that would be great for the sport. That'd be great for fans like me and you who sit at home each week and support this series and watch more drama, more controversy, especially from somebody who's winning. That's great TV. So I want Noah Gragson to do well, but I want him to focus on driving the race car to the best of his abilities and less on petty controversies like this. And I know you guys are saying, oh, but Hemric's the one who came up to him and tried to fight. Noah Gragson wasn't doing anything. The pit road incident, Gragson could have handled differently. Didn't need to flip Hemric off. Clearly Hemric did not like that, and that stuck with him. And even though I don't believe he crossed that metaphorical line quite on pit road, I don't think what he did was egregious. He could have handled that differently. A veteran driver would have respected the boundaries of pit road differently. They would have understood that, hey, there are people standing around. I got to be very careful with how I put this car in gear, where I back up, how I place my, Noah Gragson, a young driver, was probably not thinking that clearly, which is why a veteran like Denny Hamlin reacted strongly to it. So no, Gragson didn't start the fist fight, but Gragson did not handle things on the track as well as he certainly could have. And again, he has a history behind him. I think that's another part of it. He has a history, and he needs to work hard to overcome that negative history in my eyes. But that's all I've got. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about that Noah Gragson, Daniel Hemric deal. We went over in great detail here today. I appreciate y'all watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I could not do this show without your tremendous support each and every month. Plenty more to come this week. It's Bristol Dirt Week, folks, so get ready. It's going to be something. Lots to talk about. I'll see you real soon. Have a great rest of your Monday, everyone.